Is platinum about to explode 10 times higher? Why 99% of investors will completely miss out on this opportunity. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Ainslie Insights, brought to you by ainslie.com.au, the home of Ainslie Bullion, Ainslie Crypto, Ainslie Wealth, and the Gold and Silver Standard. Be sure to have a look. Dave, welcome back, Bailey. Look, provocative title there, Bailey. You're sort of suggesting, people are going to miss out on this. There's an opportunity here. It goes much higher. Are you just trying to lure us in with a bit of fancy footwork there on the title, or is there some meat behind this? What's going on?
A little bit of column A and a little bit of column B, but no, there's definitely things happening from the US government perspective, so we can definitely dive into that in the platinum space.
So what is it? Because we have this conversation a lot in office, right? Like where platinum, it's almost the forgotten brother of gold and silver. Lots of people are sort of following the silver story in particular around its use. But platinum seems to be that when people do a bit of a deep dive, they come out and go, wow, I need to get some of that. Is it there's something that's changed recently that's pushing that? What's actually going on with that government angle on this?
Yeah, I think what we're starting to see is a lot of the similar story and the similar narrative for silver is starting to now get applied to platinum in a way that it wasn't before. Silver has, I would say, almost like a cult-like following, particularly from the retail who buy it. And I'm cautious to use that word because I'm also a part of that cult but I say that endearingly. So, but it's sort of got a bit of a cult-like following because of, there is logically it's a good thing to buy. And I think platinum is starting to get a little bit of that almost splashback of that. And that's sort of the retail perspective from what we've seen through the doors at Ainslie. But there's a bit of news coming out now from the US and where the money is actually flowing. They're really starting to make a push towards those critical metals. Now that's really good for silver particularly, but the US they've pledged it's close to $700 million in an equity stake in various critical minerals companies. So the Department of Defense alone has done $400 million into what was it, rare earth element. Mm-hmm. It's something along those lines. Forgive me if the name's wrong. So they're really starting to be forthcoming. They're planning for the future. They're on all these developments that are starting to be done locally over in the US. It looks like they're really going to start trying to take back their own production of these metals because they're looking at where things are heading, particularly with AI and what that's actually going to cost to power going forward. So we all know AI has just absolutely, it's exponentially growing. But the concern now is how they actually power that. So I think AI here might be the key for platinum's growth. So I think there's a heavy correlation there, or at least the US government and what they're spending on, they seem to think that there's a heavy correlation there. And now we're sort of having this almost critical minerals arms race between the US and sort of other major economies.
And it has been something that's popped up a few times now, this idea that you really do need to secure the supply of these minerals because you mentioned the AI angle. I mean, between electric cars, solar, AI, all of that, they're all using these critical minerals in some combination, in some degree. And if you don't have access to them, you lose access to all that emerging tech, which is very important. But the other angle that you've highlighted when we were talking about this before was that platinum is starting to play a role in that debasement trade as well. So where you've had gold and silver really going up on the debt concerns out of the US, platinum is also a precious metal. It is also something that helps protect against that. Is there anything you can elaborate on there?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's in sort of round figures, it's about 30 times rarer than gold already. So from a scarcity point of view, it's already much rarer than gold, which really doesn't do a whole lot other than, is just that debasement trade. So it sort of has that dual role that silver has, but it also has the scarcity that silver doesn't have compared to gold. And when you actually look at the breakdown of platinum and how it's actually used in the industries that it's actually held in currently, the demand, only 9% of that is investment currently. Yep. The 27% is jewelry, 38% is automotive, and then the rest is made up of all of those areas. We're talking into 1s, 2s, 4%, very fractional amounts for the rest of the demand for platinum, which is why I think that, the provocative title at the start is those fractional amounts. There's a lot of room for that to flip from automotive, which takes up 38%, and jewelry, which, jewelry is jewelry. It's just stuff you wear on your wrist. So there is a flip that could happen there. And as I said, the US government and particularly the Chinese government are seeing that. Because they realize there's going to be a need for it. And if you don't have it and you can't source it locally and you can't produce it, you're going to have to buy it off someone else and they're going to be able to charge whatever they want. That's just 101, in supply and demand. So
Right.
I think that when only 9% of platinum demand is investment, there's a lot of room for that to even grow once retail catches on to this. And then perhaps, once retail catch on, then the bigger players catch on. There's absolutely room for this to just be a compounding powder keg to explode. And speaking just from the as I like to do, the local, we work at a bullion shop, so it's always nice to give people a bit of the inside scoop into that. It actually takes a really long time to get platinum and refine it. The refinement process for platinum is more difficult than definitely gold. So it takes the suppliers a lot longer to get it. So you do get this sort of bull rush on platinum a lot quicker, like you do with your silver, than you do your gold. So it doesn't actually take a whole lot of money to really sort of put the supply strain on it.
And that's a really important point I'd like to dig in a bit more on, because we don't see anywhere near the volumes of platinum go through our store, for example, relative to what we would see of gold and silver. Like it's not even remotely close to that volume. But some of those supply deficits, people are really focused on them for silver. They haven't really been paying attention to them in platinum, but the platinum supply deficits are quite real. And there's also risks, I think, from some of that breaking down. Like if you just lose some of those key areas where platinum has been coming, for example, recycling, right? Like people stop recycling it because they go, well, I'm going to hoard it instead. Or you've got governments, like you've mentioned, the US government sort of hoarding some of that stuff. It could really be an explosive situation because the supply side of that equation is quite tight also.
Yeah, and I think as we've just pointed out with those figures, the governments they're only just starting to want it.
Yeah.
They don't, that's where we're at this phase now where the demand for it is actually quite low compared to how, stressed the supply is. So we're finding supply stress and people don't even really want it. Like we're from the local point of view, we're taking long delays to get it. And it makes up a fraction of our sales. So you can do the math there on as if the US government is putting, pledging 700 million towards this stuff. It doesn't take a whole lot of money for that supply to get really, really stressed. So that it's the same issue with the mines like we have with silver. It just becomes, as I said, a compounding powder keg that mathematically it has to go up as they want it. So I think that going forward, platinum will emerge as a much more attractive metal in this space for both the industrial use and the investment. Which I was even shocked that 9% of all platinum demand is investment. I would have thought that number would have been higher. But that is what it is. So, I mean, that is a staggeringly low number, I think. Particularly, it's a chicken and egg thing. Which one's going to come first? Government's buying it up because they, have the foresight that they're going to need it, or are retail going to jump on that and they're going to buy it all up, which, it just creates this sort of this sort of race to see who's going to win. And then, that results in higher prices for everyone. So, that's why the title, while quite extreme, I think could be a non-extreme reality.
And do you think that we have seen dramatic price spikes in the past during certain market conditions? Do you think that we're in a similar situation for that to happen now? Like, yes, you've got the supply dynamics, yes, you've got the demand dynamics, but just more broadly, the market conditions that we're seeing for gold and silver, do they tend to correlate with a timeline on this? Like, can you say, well, I know, for example, gold often moves first, as we saw this time, then silver had its big run, is still in the process of having that big run. Is there a similar pattern that you've identified with platinum?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think exactly what you just said is what has played out. Gold has had a big move. Silver has had an incredible move. And I think what that does is that just brings eyes to commodities in general. And
Yeah.
you're looking at the retail, as I said, you get a very quick supply strain on platinum. And I think a lot of people do buy it then because of that. And I think this move was a little bit of the things that I'm saying starting to play out, but I think it was more just indicative of the precious metals and commodities space booming in general. I think it's just sort of, jumped on the tail of that and rode up. But what it has done now is made people look at it a lot more. And I think the same thing we're seeing with silver is a lot of people are going, wow, gold is really expensive. I cannot afford gold. Now I'm speaking from the retail context here. They go, wow, I only get half an ounce of gold for how much? Well, I don't really want to pay the premium on a 1 ounce silver coin. So there's platinum sitting in the middle. 1 ounce of platinum, much more affordable. So I think that's what we've seen from the retail this time, and it's sort of pulled it up. But what that does is then you've got some platinum, you've got some skin in the game. You start to look in and you go, oh, I feel pretty good about having this because of all of these things that we've spoken about. So absolutely, it's the forgotten, third child, I think. But it'll be it'll have its day, I think.
And sort of to wrap that up, following on from that, I think that's a really interesting way to look at it too. You're going to feel good about having some of it. I often make this same analogy with Bitcoin, and people will agree or disagree. That's fine. But I'll say, look, if I'm right, having a little bit of it, I'm not saying put your life savings into it, having a little bit of it on the side, you're going to feel good about the fact that you took some action on it. If I'm wrong, you only invested a little bit in it as well. Do you think that that's kind of the same play here with platinum, where people who go, oh, look, I'm not interested in platinum, I just like my gold, or I just like my silver, I understand that. Is it a case that you should have a few ounces because you should just have that sort of diversification anyway, just in case that, the bold headline comes true and you get the 10x, because what's the downside?
Exactly that. This is the attraction of silver as well. Is it's the dual nature of the metal. You've got the double whammy. You've got the debasement of the dollars and the currencies around the world, but then you've also got the fact that both of these metals are going to be used in emerging technologies that have not fully emerged yet. So I don't think there's a problem having a diversification, depending on the individual and your situation, of course, and risk tolerance. I don't think there's an issue at all if you're in the commodities space. If you just want gold for a reason, and that reason is hedge against inflation, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, fine. If you want to have that volatile asset of silver, I'd say that's probably more where you want that diversification. Is if you want to diversify your silver holdings across that industry, because you don't know which one is necessarily going to be used more, which one they're going to harness, which one the governments are going to be able to mine easier. Like, there are a lot of things here that we don't know about those two metals. So I think I would think of it as gold separate to silver and platinum. And I would, diversify your gold with silver and platinum would be how I would sort of frame it in my brain.
Yeah, that's a really interesting way to look at it. Well, look, thank you for your work on that today, Bailey. It's a topic I know lots of people will be interested in. I know there are some platinum fans out there, but it feels like all of us probably need a little bit more from what you're saying.
There are dozens of us. Dozens of us.
Dozens.
There are dozens of us.
Look, thanks again for your work on that, Bailey. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks.
Thanks everyone for watching. We'll chat again soon.